What up, 24-hour party people? 'Tis I, Tim the Brand Weaver, and once again you are tuning in to Branding for Breweries, the show, like the intro says, that brings you the brightest minds from the brewing world to your earballs and eyeballs to educate, inspire, and ultimately tantillate your senses for you to go, that sounds interesting. I might look into that and give it a go. And today is no exception because not only am I joined by a guy who has a track record which is epic, where he's been, what he's done, and what he's involved in, but I will let this gentleman explain that for you. But equally, the man, Andrew Morgan, I feel an affinity for because he is a bearded, bald-headed man. And as we know, the bald-headed brethren must stand together in this industry to rise up and overthrow the power of the long-haired people. I take that back. If you do have long hair and you are listening to the show, please stick around. I love you. I need every possible ear on this. But without further ado, that's me waxing lyrical. Let's bring Andrew in and let's have a good old chin wag. Andrew!
Hello, hello, hello.
Woo! How you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you, Tim?
I am super funky fresh. Even though it's Monday morning, the caffeine is flowing wild.
Yeah, Mondays.
Feeling the same?
Yeah. Mondays, it's kind of the weekends, like just a memory. Although Tuesdays are my worst because at least on Monday you can talk about the weekend, but on Tuesdays it's a dead zone. And Wednesday's the hump day, so you can kind of plan for that. So Tuesdays are my really grim day. But yeah, today, Monday, all good. I'm here. This
I've
is
got you
awesome.
on a peak. Fantastic then. Andrew, let's get stuck in, man, because today we're going to be talking about a subject which is really exciting, which is beyond the liquid in the glass. Like, how do you find a lane? How do you create this brand outside of the beverage or outside of the taste of the liquid? But before we dive into that, for those people who might not know about yourself and what you do and your track history, in a blind date-esque fashion, what's your name and where'd you come from, love?
My name's Andrew Morgan. And I've been in the beer industry since about 2010 when I started up the Bottle Shop on my own in a farmer's market in Canterbury, and decided that the world needed the opportunity to drink better beer. And at that time, craft was kind of finding its feet. I did a film for the London Brewers Alliance, filming the 13 breweries that existed in London at the time. And that was a bit of a stretch because we went to Windsor and Eton and we went to a campsite in North London. So it wasn't really 13. It was probably closer to 9, really. And obviously since then, it's always the fact that I use when everyone asks, what's the beer world been like? How's it changed? And 13 in 2010, only 2 left in 2007. So when Young's closed in Wandsworth, there was only Fuller's, 3, Fuller's, Meantime, and Park Royal, where Guinness was brewed. So it was like, 3 to 13 was a big change, and now we're in the hundreds, right? So back then in 2010, it was a very different world, and I just really believe that there was great beer out there from Europe and America, and ended up creating a business that imported some amazing beer from around the world, had our own bars, 800 accounts across the UK that we were distributing, invested in cold chain distribution, really hopefully made the world a little bit better in terms of what people could expect of beer. 2019, the business got bought by ABI, so almost got bought by BrewDog, but then ABI came in, worked for them for a couple of years, turning it into Beer Hawk Fresh, which is really interesting to go into the world's largest brewery, even with ZX Ventures, that in theory is their agile, I use quotes there, agile kind of side of it. But it was fascinating to see how they took what was a pretty cutting edge craft business and believe that they could do something that was going to be more mainstream. So worked for them for a couple of years. COVID killed that off, and then have been doing a variety of brewery and beer related sort of roles, running breweries, and now working for Roleys and Supernatural Lager. That's a phenomenally interesting beer, which has just won gold at the World Beer Awards and best lager in the UK, but has a third less calories, B vitamins, and 0 sugars. So it's really, really interesting. So I guess always been trying to shake things up, always looking for something that's different, and working with hundreds of breweries as to why we felt that they would be great to put onto a stage, sell in our bars, sell around the country, and why has always been a critical question to ask for anyone that we wanted to represent.
Phenomenal. As I say, what a history, man. You've been all over the shop and you've done some incredible things. But as you rightly say, the why, this idea of what I call the lane, picking a lane, is so
Yep.
critical. But the number of breweries I chat to, they really struggle with that concept of going, well, what do you mean? It's just, we've got good beer. Isn't that enough? Like, what's your take on it? Why do breweries really struggle with that idea of finding their why, their lane?
I think for me, it's like brewers and their beers and their breweries are like parents and children, right? We all love our children generally, and we would defend them to the hilt if someone came along and said, actually, they're they're rude or smelly or bad or whatever. And you're never going to ask a parent, why have you had children? Like, you're just not going to ask that, right? So I think there's a fundamental right for for any brewer to create their beer, but unfortunately, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm gonna care, because I can't care about everyone else's children as much as I do my own. And I think that's when you can really say, well, yeah, again, using the children analysis again, it's like, well, that one's really sporty and that one's really bright and that one's really tall and that one, is great at cooking. If there's a reason to engage, then you can kind of go, oh, okay, I get that. And you can do that through awards. Awards are great. They can say, someone says these guys are good, but actually, it's really kind of odd that we don't have an awards-based culture here in the UK very much. We've got sort of the Great British Beer Festival, we've got SIBA, but when it comes to the major players, I'm not aware of people like Cloudwater or Northern Monk really crowing about awards and entering awards, and I've always wondered kind of why they don't. And I think that there's, maybe there's a slightly British aversion to kind of wanting to be applauded, but I think at the same time, it's like, I don't know, it's like you kind of, then you've got to step up to that level. Whereas actually, for a lot of breweries, existing is enough. And I doff my hat to anyone who can make money out of selling beer. Congratulations. If your market works for you, then that's brilliant. But I think probably, when you're going to run it like a business rather than a brewery, and you're going to look to say, well, actually, I want some more money, or my investors want some more money, or I want to just do more, I want to get bigger, then you've got to kind of step outside of your little pond, and you can't be local anymore. And because your local doesn't matter to someone else's local, they've already got their local people. So then you've got to be good. Then you've got to be, what I always aspire to, which is world class. Then we're looking at breweries that are producing product that is absolutely the best in the world, and that's an aspiration, which I think, if you want to be better and not just be commercially average, because again, I think you can look at someone like BrewDog, who were incredibly interesting when they first started, and every beer release was like, oh my god, BrewDog's got a new beer. And what made them successful commercially was to make the beer really boring, because then everyone's going to like it, right? Well, they're not going to dislike it. And I think that was a lesson to a lot of breweries, to go, yeah, if you want to get big, you're going to have to get boring. And I don't think many breweries do want to get boring. I think they want to be good, right? So it comes around to this whole conversation of just like, why? What's your story? If you're going to do a blind date conversation, why do I care about you? And it sounds slightly unkind and mean in a modern context, but when you've got distributors out there who are going to ask you that question, why do I care? So I think it's, I don't know if that's come round to answer the question at all, but
It
I think
certainly has.
it's just a case of really working out who you are and what you're doing and who your customers are, and they're all obvious things, but beer is such a closely differentiated product, right? It's like liquid in a glass. It's usually fizzy, usually kind of golden amber kind of colored, and if you lined them all up, who can tell the difference, really? I mean, it's not wildly different, and therefore everything that's not in the glass is critical to people's association and belief with how it makes them feel. And I think that's a wonderful place to be, because it's not just marketing, and it's not just hyperbole and nonsense. Like, actually, it should make sense. Like, I want to care, I want a story, but the story's got to be a good story.
There's an interesting piece when you talked about BrewDog, and they made kind of pretty simple standard beer, but it was the narrative around it. It was the story they told and how they activated on it that really drew people in. And, you know, you talked about you've got to understand who your people are, who that tribe is. Is there a concern that, you know, going, and I've heard brewers say, it's like, well, we make beer for everyone. Is that more than likely to damage the brand, or can it actually help because they're actually spreading a bigger net, as it were?
I think it's, I mean, again, I think if you're running the business and you're running it for yourself, if it's essentially, you know, a bit of a lifestyle business, you like what you're doing, and you just want to make simple people happy. It's this simple pleasure. Like beer is a simple pleasure, and I think it's one of the greatest things is to just get on and enjoy a really simple pint, and it doesn't have to be more. But I think beer is one of the most unique things in the world to the fact that it can be so much more. So when you look at what can be produced and you can look at how it can really make people go, oh my God, like an oh my God moment. And I was talking to a couple of guys recently who I've known throughout my career in beer and just saying to them, when was the last time you had a beer that made you go, oh my God? And they kind of just went, yeah, it's been a long time. And I think for those of us who were there at the beginning of craft and who remember the Cloudwater Dipper releases when, you know, people were queuing outside to get them and there was a real sense of excitement. I think that's one of the things that for me has been sadly lost because I think there needs to, because people have wanted to be more mainstream and want to create a wider net. And I think this is, again, when people ask, you know, what's changed, I think that go back to 2010 and you're looking, craft beer didn't exist as a term, right? And it's only 15 years ago. It's crazy. And it was kind of imported from the States and no one really liked it. And if you asked people, if you did a survey and said how many people in the UK are drinking craft beer, it's going to be a fraction of 1%, right? It's like a tiny, tiny number of people. And then that number grew and grew and grew as more people came into the sector, and Beavertown and BrewDog and all these people sort of started bringing more people in with beer that was different, but not too different. Because the challenge is that if you make it too weird, then obviously you're making it niche. So actually they created this great commercial product, Neck Oil Punk IPA, which are really accessible, brought loads of people in. And now the sector's at like 15%. You know, 15% would say that they're drinking craft beer. So it's an enormous change in 15 years again. However, those people are satisfied with what they're having. They're in, they're happy. They're not really looking for anything more. They're just happy, right? And that's not a bad thing. I think overall for the industry, you know, it's not a bad thing. But man, do I miss the sense of trying to layer the expectation of kind of, you know, better, of like something that's going to give these, because I think they want it. I'm just not sure that there's anything out. There's not many places that are really trying that. So if the bars aren't wanting to serve more interesting beer, the brewers aren't going to brew it. And ultimately, we're in this kind of strange place right now where there's not a lot of momentum. Like I've never known the industry, and all the time I've known it to feel like it's got less momentum than it has now. It's kind of existing. So I think actually this is a brilliant time to go and be edgy and do stuff that's gonna poke through and really build loyalty for the breweries that are out there.
I think to me, it sounds like there is a danger with it, though, of trying to do something a bit more breakthrough and stand out. Now, you've got your argument that you've got the Vault Cities, and they're doing wacky flavors, like massive rotations every month, and everyone can try something new. So that in itself is one business model. But in my mind, it's still accessible because it's got flavor, it's got nostalgia that people probably latch onto and go, oh yeah, I like a crunchy bar, or, you know, umbongo, or whatever it might be. If you then come back to the slightly weirder and wonderful, more traditional beer styles that you're saying, you're talking about the Cloudwater, you know, kind of your dippers and stuff, and trying to get that more mainstream. How important is it to have a story alongside that that's going to help it cut through beyond it just being a slightly different beer?
So I think the rotation, for me, rotation killed craft. I mean, it was if you know, there's a whole conversation about when stroke if craft died, and I think that, you know, I remember a brewery coming to me when the bottle shop was still running and saying, we're going to do 52 specials this year. And I just looked at them and said, well, we're not going to take them because there's no way that we can sell 52 a beer a week. And it felt like that was the moment of like, this has gone crazy, because the momentum of the new was so prevalent that it had no traction. And for me, if I'm going to hold up one brewery where I think they are at the pinnacle of aspiration, it's Sierra Nevada. And if my desert island beer is Sierra Pale, because it's just phenomenal. And when you get it fresh and as it should be, it's great. However, Torpedo is amazing, and all their beers, like they're doing specials, but the specials then become main beers. They graduate, because actually consistency and creating something that's properly awesome, that you don't want to stop brewing, I think is again something that's been it's left our ideology as beer drinkers. Someone like Fuller's back in the day, you'd have your core beers, and then you'd have the seasonal rotationals that would come in, probably 4 a year, and that would be it. And that was exciting, when Red Fox came out and it was autumn, you're like, oh, it's autumn, Red Fox was here, and there was something to get excited about. When you're doing 52 new beers a year, it's bonkers. And then you multiply that over multiple breweries, and you're just inundated with new. However, you buyer beware, because no one's going to unless you're going to go on Rate Beer or Untapped. I'm showing my age there, aren't I? Rate Beer doesn't really exist anymore, does it? Untapped, and get an idea of whether people like it or not. Who knows? And I'm not paying £7 a pint or £7 for a funky looking can of something that might be great or might be completely forgettable. I think, going back to the core, I think if, having beers that you can really, really rely upon, that you can build upon, that you can say, this is properly brilliant. And there are many, many beers out there in the UK. I mean, again, almost all of them for me go back to cask. So I'm, Harvey's Best and Great London Pride and, Titanic Stout. There's loads that Tim Taylor, Landlord, love them. When they're good, they're amazing and unforgettable. And I think that's almost like I throw that in there to say, if you're going to brew a beer, you want people to fall in love with it and find it unforgettable. Like they can't do without it, really. And if you're not at that point, I kind of, it's like just going to the cinema and just watching any old film, right? Yeah, they're made, but I'm not sure I care really.
So, okay, let's assume that those brewers who are listening, they've got a beer, they're going, yeah, this is top quality. And I would hope that every brewer believes in their beer and their product that they're creating. But, we can take Roleys, for example. You've got a really exciting liquid, as you say, it's award-winning now, but it's so much more than just it being award-winning. What I'd love to know from you is like how you went beyond the liquid and you've developed a real story and something that shaped the Roleys identity in a way that you're finding a different market. You've got, a different approach to it, which I think so many more breweries should be considering right now, instead of going, oh, it's a beer and it's a beer for everyone.
Yeah, I've always believed that if you're in a room of 100 people and 99 people are looking in one direction, you've got to kind of turn around and do the exact opposite. Because if you're just going to follow that crowd, then you're not going to make any difference, really. And it doesn't excite me, just to do what everyone else is doing. So when Roleys came along and I got involved with them a couple of years ago, and they had a product that is probably revolutionary. There's a unique set of ingredients that go into all natural ingredients that go into the fermentation that basically trick the yeast into doing what we want rather than what they would normally do. And conventional science will not allow you to get a beer that tastes great and actually has fewer calories. It's like almost you just can't do it. You can't cheat science. This genuinely does create something that's you won gold at the World Beer Awards without anyone knowing that it has over a third less calories. And so when we and even when I came on, High Rocks, who are like one of the world's largest fitness sort of companies, they were already on board. They were already like going, we want this. Like we're tired of presenting. They tried 0 out beers and their athletes weren't interested. Like they were just like, if I want an isotonic drink, I'm not going to go and drink a beer necessarily. Like it doesn't really feels a bit odd. And they wanted real reward. I mean, these are people who work hard, train hard, play hard, and they want to have a drink, obviously responsibly. I wouldn't care to brush against the ASA again on this one, but ultimately they do like a drink, but they also don't want to pay the price of the calories, and also don't want to. As you get older, it gets harder to wake up in the morning and feel bright and breezy. And we have to be really careful how we talk about the B vitamins in the beer, because the B vitamins are naturally brewed. So normally the yeast would eat them, leave a small amount, but basically they're all left. So we've got an abundance of B vitamins, and those are very good for liver function, and they're very good for brain function. And our community has told us that this means that they feel brighter in the morning, having had some drinks the night before, and can go and do their 5K run like they would do. So the High Rocks community, this is the answer to their dreams. They can carry on drinking but not pay the price. So this is a really different, I mean, alcohol and this market, I can't really think of anybody who's really gone to tackle it, because we're so regulated, and we have to be very, very careful with Portman Group and ASA on how we present this, because we cannot, under any circumstances, use any health claims or do anything to say that we're in that space. But we can certainly associate the product with the people and say, well, these people like our beer. And so, we're at High Rocks at Birmingham last week, and it was amazing to see these 20,000 people engaging with a drinks brand in a way that I don't think's ever really happened before. So brilliant. We've got great beer. The beer is fantastic. I don't worry about the beer, but actually the fun thing is trying to find those new people who aren't who haven't been over marketed to. I think, again, if we're not really aiming for beer people, we're aiming for gyms, activating through gyms, and places like that are not the normal way of working. That's exciting. And for me, it was like, I want to be part of this. I want to really work on how we can, work on the branding, work on the positioning, and make it really clear to people. And we're still only, 5 months now since kind of properly launching with the product. So it's still early days, but the trajectory is phenomenally exciting.
And so you've got your product, it's good. It's been verified that it's good. It's won awards. You've found a market that seems untapped. And I think it's a really interesting market to go at. And we talked about it in the past. But what are your tools that you're now playing with? Like, what are the biggest assets that you're leading with? You've of course got the can, but how are you getting that narrative across to this new market, to this new consumer that hasn't really been tapped up before?
Well, I think this is it. They're not particularly brand loyal, so but they love a subscription. So they love gym memberships. They love the idea of achieving risk and reward. They're putting the effort in, and they want a reward. And so I think we're looking sort of mini celebrations. So the idea that during the day we all get to 7 o'clock, right, and we all kind of go, right, now it's time to crack open a beer or a bottle of wine or whatever. And during the day, you look at those moments where actually you kind of go, you know what, I kind of deserve this. This is my reward for a hard day that I've done. And I think, again, that feels like we're moving towards kind of lifestyle rather than trying to compete on the shelf or trying to compete on a tea bar or in a bar. It's like without this messaging, without trying to get through to these people to be part of their kind of daily life and to talk to them in a way that they're used to talking to. So, we're going to be putting like a nutritional panel on the label, and actually choosing to identify all the things that are in the beer and not in the beer in a way that, I mean, it's, sugars are a phenomenal subject to do with beer, and especially the low alcohol beer. And you'll note that even though they could, low alcohol beer will never call themselves healthy because it's got an enormous amount of unfermented sugar in there. So it's got lower calories because it hasn't got the alcohol, but the sugar content's through the roof. So it's not a healthy product. And we all kind of know that beer's not healthy. We all sort of know that, ultimately it's not. And the industry is the regulations are there to demonize it and to make it, although we can have people looking happy, it's a challenge. So we've almost gone, well, we're not going to do that. If anyone else is doing it, then actually we're probably in the wrong place. So we want to go to a place that feels completely open, and we're almost treating it like it's not a beer, really. Like it's kind of yeah, but we're still making up as we go along at the moment. This is the fun thing of being in an area where you kind of never, you actually don't know what you don't know yet, and but that's exciting, but also a little bit perilous, because again we you know, the ASA will wrap our knuckles and ask us questions and stuff, but but again, I'll just give you a little weave on this one. So we can't say we can't say zero sugar, because that's a health claim apparently, but we can say sugar 0 grams. That's okay, because that's factual. And there's all kinds of stuff like this at the moment that I'm kind of loving it. I love messing with. I love playing with words and semantics and all that. So we're kind of, there are things that we're saying, okay, well, we won't say beer with benefits, because benefits implies health benefits, but we'll list it in a different way. And I think it's a bizarre thing for an industry that ultimately would say it would want to protect consumers from the negative effects of alcohol, and we have a product that clearly mitigates that in a way that's real, and yet we are struggling to be able to use language to allow a consumer to inform themselves as to how this product might be less harmful than others to them. And I kind of get it, but it's interesting.
It keeps you going though, right? The challenge is what keeps it going.
Yeah.
You mentioned something really interesting just then about, it means because you've got this different audience, this different market, you're not competing on taps and in the tap room. You've got a different playground to play against. And I think that is almost another phenomenal asset of going, well, this is the different market. We're going, like you say, you're not even treating it like a beer. I think, Jubel did it a little bit similar, where they picked the après-ski kind of approach. But what I'm wondering is, you've had, or the Roleys team and yourself have the benefit of going, well, this is a new product to market, so we can carve this narrative, we can find the audience, we can find the niche. I've got a lot of breweries who are listening who've been around for years, or someone's purchased a brewery and they know the beer is good, but everything else is not great and needs work. What are your thoughts around a brewery who's trying to evolve to almost find their place without it being, I suppose, shoehorned in any way?
I think that the phrase that was always used to me with the American breweries was a home run beer, and every brewery should have a home run beer, and they should have the beer that really defines them as this is the pinnacle of what they've done. And you can have you need to have a variety of beers, but I think having one that you think have the confidence to go, you know what, if I had to, this is the one that I would say is our best. I think that is critical to consumers having a point of confidence within a brewery. If you said to me, "Oh, I've got 5 beers and they're all brilliant," I'm going to kind of go, "Well, are they all really brilliant?" I mean, it's unlikely that all 5 are going to be as good as each other. And I think, again, in that sense of nobody wants to say that they've got a favorite child out of their family, but brewers need to. I think they really need to. And I remember having a conversation with the guys at Magic Rock back in the day, and this is when Beer Hall Fresh was happening, and we signed up we managed to get ABI working with Lion and Carlsberg and all of their competitors in a way that was about trying to revitalize the core experience of beers that everyone can rely upon. And Magic Rock at the time were doing endless specials. I mean, it was just like, again, they'd gone down this route of fanning the flames of craft fandom by coming up with new stuff. But in reality, it was just saying to them, Cannonball is absolutely brilliant. Salty Kiss is absolutely brilliant. Why are you not really championing these and always going for the new? And the reason was because they said, well, people are bored of them. Like there's no interest. And I found that to be fascinating, because actually, if I go into a bar and I see a brand that I recognize and a brewery I recognize, I'm probably far more likely to feel the confidence to go, oh, I like that. And I think one of the things that has really vanished from this idea of continually having new is the confidence to say, I like this, I'm going to drink this. And you just have to look at Guinness and go, wow, like how amazing as Guinness for a loyalty in a product. And
Mm.
admittedly, there's not a lot out there to compete. People have tried. You've had Black Heart, and you've got Anne Spatch's London Black, and you've got all these other. But Guinness is still Guinness, right? And I think, you know, it's done well in a category to establish itself with that loyalty, because they are maniacal on the brand. And when they faltered trying to do Guinness IPA and Guinness adjuncts that didn't work, and it kind of was, again, one of those fascinating bits of marketing foot in mouth, which I think they thought they were going to win, but it's an exercise in sticking to your core principles. So, you know, I think for the breweries that are out there, you probably have got one favorite. And I think you got probably, if you had to put, if it was a horse in a race and you had to say, right, well, who we can invest in, which is the horse that we think we can really run with, have the confidence to just put it there first and foremost. You know, find your London Pride, find your Sierra Pale, find your name a brewery, and you tell me what you think your favorite beer is of them. And I think, you know, that's where, if the industry is going to come back to having some confidence, and, you know, there's so much product and there's so many breweries, that actually having the confidence to be the next favorite beer and make people loyal, I think it's harder, right? I'm not saying it's easy, because I think actually new is the easiest way of doing it. But you know, only once you've got them buying your core product, like really think about who that person is, why they want to care, get it in front of people, and just make them believe that they don't need to try harder. I think for me, it's a if I look at the resurgence of lager and how lager's now come into really fill a void, and it's always been there. I mean, German lager's amazing, and it's simple, and it's easy, and it's a decision that, again, when you look at those Carling, Peroni, you know, traditional lager drinkers that I think for most of the craft people they throw stones at and go, you're idiots, actually they're really happy. And they're not on the merry-go-round, right? They're not looking for the next new thing that could be life-changing, and it won't be. They've got that confidence, and my rally cry to breweries out there is find that beer that you really want to put forward, and force people to just drink it, you know, to just love it, and make it their holy grail beer.
So with that in mind, would you say the story, or the lane, we've talked about the lane and the why, is more important for the beer than the brewery itself? Because there's two different narratives that you're talking about here. We've got a brewery narrative, why the brewery is special and important and different, but now you're talking about there's a particular beer, a particular product. So are you suggesting that actually the why should be focused on that product versus the wider ecosystem of the brewery?
I think the beer is an expression of what the brewery is, right? So you've got the overarching brand that is the brewery, and that's going to encapsulate all kinds of things, where the location and the founders and the people who work there, and the mission objectives, and, you know, there's a whole load of stuff there. And I think, you know, you could have multiple you could have beers in different categories that have that. So although I'm talking about one beer, if you're going to do it as a pale ale, doesn't mean you can't have a home run stout. Doesn't mean you can't have a, you know, I mean, back in the day, you know, we're looking at sour beers. I mean, there are breweries out there who have left brain, right brain, kind of, you know, the brewery over that we used to bring over from California. I mean, they've got the most amazing sour program that's just phenomenal, the terroir side. And then they've got the kind of core side that was generally barrel aged. Two completely different brains, same brewers, but different expressions. And I think, you know, that was brilliant to see those separated out. Core brand is still the brewery, but there were different things there. And I think and different consumers, you know, I think, again, someone who's a stout lover, are they really drinking pale ales? And are the pale ale people really drinking sours? And are they, any of those, really drinking barrel aged, you know, 12% beers? I think, again, when we look at with Roleys, you know, we've got a lager, and it's a world lager, world style, and 80% of the UK drinks lager. So it's the biggest by a long way, the biggest style in the country. And a question that we've been asked many times is, well, are you going to do more beer? Are you going to do an IPA? Are you going to do a session? Are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? And the simple answer is, well, if we've got 80% that we're untapped and we're going into this health market, this kind of, you know, the health and fitness people, why our IPA is going to be a fraction of that 20%. Like, it's not going to be many people. We're not going to change the world by changing our focus. And actually, you know, for us to have one home run beer and really concentrate on it and say, this is our product, and to feel that there's enough opportunity there to mine that within that 80%, especially those that are not particularly loyal to whatever beer they have, and also something they never knew existed. So again, that's a lovely thing for us. That felt like that commercial opportunity is big enough. We don't need, although we are doing a stout, which is just to say, just because I think a lower calorie Guinness is an awesome opportunity to go and try and nick some of those people. But you know, they're right off the coattails of Guinness a little bit. But that's probably it. You know, when it comes, we're not going to do 6 beers. We're not going to do a full range. And I appreciate the commercial imperative of a brewery. When you're starting up, you think, well, we want to get, you know, especially if you're not doing lager. So again, remember, that's 20%. So you're dealing with a 20% of the country. And the lager category, I get it. I mean, you know, to kind of to go with a commercial product, you're going against the big boys. You're going against, you know, mainstream beer. But again, that's where it starts getting exciting, because those sausage fingered big breweries, they're not agile, right? And a craft lager is a lovely thing. I mean, something that's got some real finesse and story about it. And I want to hear about the water, and I want to know why you're doing these things, and I want to have the inspiration. And I think, again, those, you know, that I still think lagers, if you're not doing a lager, then but it's hard to do, right? So again, this is not an easy style. And I think we mentioned a story about a London brewery that specialized in lagers coming up to me when we did an event at the Bottle Shop in Bermondsey, and we gave them a tap takeover. And the guy who ran the brewery came up to me and said, "Why aren't you distributing our beers?" And I said, "Well, I can buy German beer cheaper and it's better." And it was a horrible conversation, but we both shook hands and kind of, you know, went off, and it was all fine. But for me, that was a really simple thing of like, if you're going to do a lager, it can't just be a copy of a German lager, because I can get German lager and it's brilliant and it's cheaper, and they're still going. So again, hats off to them. You know, they've managed to make it work. But I think ideally, you know, you want to find something that feels like it's, you know, it's from the heart, it's from you, and share that with people. And that's just good storytelling and getting out there and you know, hearts and minds and beer tastings and festivals and building on socials and getting people to say they love it, you know, and to really work on that. And I think, you know, that's the core for me of any good brewery, is going to have people who really love what you're doing. And that might not mean you're going to take over the world. I mean, I don't think Sierra Nevada intended to take over the world in the way that they did. They just really built upon fantastic principles, fantastic beer, and have got to where they are. But, you know, I've never been in business to take over the world. I've never been in business to do anything other than what I think is going to make me sleep at night happily and try and make people have better lives and enjoy life a bit more through great beer. And I think, you know, that's still a mantra for most breweries. I think, again, this idea of bigger. It's
an interesting point, because when you talk about lager 80% of the market, but even you guys have gone, well, we're not going for 80% of the market, we're looking for a percentage within that. And a lot of other breweries who don't have world domination in their sites can do that with the other styles. And it's not just like, well, you're going after people who like an IPA. It's like, no, you're going after this subset of people who are interested in IPA for a different reason. Like adding that extra level of filtering, I suppose, really gives you a bigger opportunity to own an area. You know, you pick your lane, you're in a market of one by that point. And I know that you and I were talking about, you know, how breweries can really double down and survive on it. And you were talking about like the rise in the tap room and the experience. So beyond obviously the narrative of the beer, beyond the quality of the beer, it's then the experiential side of things. It'd be really cool to just touch 5 minutes on that, because I know we're coming up to the 40-minute mark now anyway, but it was a really interesting chat. So can you, for the benefit of the listeners, explain like where you think tap rooms and those breweries who have a tap room can really like win in this market?
Yeah, definitely. I think there was I think it was about 2015, 2016, there was a stat that came out of America that there were more brewery t-shirts being sold than band t-shirts and like music t-shirts. And I think that was when I realized that the tribal nature of kind of people loving breweries was more than music now. Like you'd wear a Def Leppard t-shirt or something to kind of go, yeah, I love, 80s rock, but actually wearing a Modern Times t-shirt said that you believed in the ethos of the brewery. and Modern Times, really good example of a who actually, unfortunately, I mean, COVID kind of killed the story a bit because they did overextend with their bars. But when you went to a Modern Times bar in California, it was a temple to pray at. I've always used that description. You can engage with the beer through the bottle or the can, but when you go to a tap room, you get to see the full extent of what that brewery means. You can, from the not just the merch. The merch is great, and actually, again, huge amount of money spent on brewery merch in the States. But it's about feeling like you're at the temple, like you are genuinely, you've gone to the church, and this is your chance to really engage with the brand. And from a brewery's point of view, this is a way that you can make these people really fall in love with you. And I've seen it over there, and I think, again, Magic Rock did a fantastic job in Huddersfield. I love that tap room, and it's impossible not to go to Fuller's whenever I'm driving by to go past Twickenham, to pop in and just buy from them, because I just fall in love with that building. I mean, it's just such an amazing brewery, and I think whatever you're doing, even if I had a business that was in a railway arch, and knew that even the Colonel these days, still brewing in a railway arch. It's not about grandeur. It's not about being in a Fuller's brewery or having the money to do multiple tap rooms, but you just want to feel like, as a customer, when you're there, you're getting more than just drinking the beer. So again, going back to that, more than it's on the glass. And I think there's a real opportunity, or there, if you are a brewery, and look at how you're presenting your beer, look at how you're selling it to people, look at what your aspirations are to do that. And I know that it's hard because many brewers aren't retailers, and retailing beer in a bar environment is different than brewing beer. And this is one of the challenges of the industry, is that you've got people who need to be business savvy, you need to be technically capable of brewing, you need to be able to run hospitality, and it's multifaceted, right? But if you can get it right, then you've got the opportunity to really do something that's meaningful. And I think the number of times I've gone to tap rooms, and either they've just been, it used to, I guess I'm showing my age here, but when I was growing up, I used to go to the record shop down the road, and the guys who ran the record shop were like the most important people in the world. And if you took up the wrong album, they kind of laugh at you and go, oh, you're an idiot. And to some degree, some of these tap rooms, it almost feels like that. It's like going into the pub and everyone's handing around and who are you? But then the ones that get it right are the most. You walk in and immediately like, oh my god, I love this. Like if it feels like me, I'm going to be happy, and you want to come back, and you want to talk about it, and you want to take beer away with you. And there's a whole world of stuff that's about that experience that I think is missing in a lot of the breweries that I think aren't developing their full potential of kind of what they could do in a way that in America was really simple. I mean, that the tap room has always been an integral part of the way they work, and it's mainly due to licensing, so that they can get away with, and you can make more money out of it, right? You can make more money selling beer directly from the brewery than you can going through distributors. So it was always a way for them to get more money in the bank. But I think that brand experience, there's probably a missing piece in most people's commercial opportunity to make people love their beer more.
I love that praying at the altar terminology, because it becomes ritualistic, really, because you go there because you expect to drink from a certain glass, a glass that you don't get anywhere else. You expect the pour to be a little bit different. The seating, the environment, the music, the lighting, it all kind of plays into something which is so much more than just.
It gives you the chance as well to present your product in the way that you want it, because the challenge of any brewery is that once you've sold it to a distributor and they've sold it to a bar, you've lost that control, right? Whereas having my own bars and having the ability to before we put the new beer on the list every week, and this could be an Omnipollo keg at 350 quid, we'd serve it in the bar on the Saturday and essentially prove that people liked it and prove that people would pay that money for it. But that experience was critical to showing the value of that product. You know, we had beautiful teku glasses and, you know, refrigeration and all these things that really made the beer feel valuable. And I think, you know, it's so easy to make beer a commodity, so easy to turn it into something that is just really generic. And that's not at the expense of beer being brilliant, because again, that's the vast majority of it. But it doesn't have to be, I don't know, I think that sense of, you're right, having your own glasses, having your own branded glasses, having staff that really care, being able to go to people and rather than just say, you know, are you enjoying that, with the kind of thinking, it's just a generic question. Like, you really want to ask the question, right? You kind of be brave enough to want to talk to people, and have people that you're employing that want to talk to people. And, you know, I think if you can do that, and it doesn't have to be, you know, like with us importing the greatest beer in the world and having that would have made it easier in some ways. It's harder when it's just yours, but your community is your community. And I think, you know, with social media and all the tools at the disposal of breweries now to utilize people that maybe aren't part of your team. So again, you know, what you're doing, I think, is brilliant, because to employ a social media person full time would be crazy, really. To employ the services of people that you know, you wouldn't do it yourself, so you need people to help you. And I think, you know, that's where the teams, like, you know, your new development, to be more than just you. I think people need it, you know, and a little goes a long way. And but you can't do it all on your own. And most brewers are just too busy brewing and trying to balance the books. So they're going to go, but how can I run a tap room? Like, how can I do that? And that's the challenge, right? Because
get the expertise.
it's hard, yeah, and the money and the time and whatever. But if you've got that ambition to do that, then great. If you haven't, and you're sitting there going, well, we're not going to do those things, you can't really expect the world to just magically form into this utopia, because you will be limited by your own limits, really. And that's, and again, I think you can feel that with you know, some breweries you go in this thing, man, you've got some great stuff here, but it's really underbaked. Like, you need someone to come in and help you. And I think they would probably agree it, but then it's hard, because then you're letting go of that control, right? So, you know, it's a very complicated subject. And the one thing that I will say is that no one should beat themselves up for where they are. Like, you are where you are. But ultimately, if you want to have a conversation about what you could be, then, you know, that's what I love. I love coming in and trying to help people develop what it is that they could do to get them to where they want to be. And even if they don't know where they want to be, that's also part of the fun of, like, well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about what you could do. And I think, again, going back to what you're doing, you know, it's really valuable to breweries out there to see beyond their very blinkered idea. And I say blinkered in a necessity rather than a desire, because it's really hard work running a brewery. Like it's the one, out of all the things that I've ever done, the one thing I would never want to do again, really, is have to manage a production brewery, because it's really hard and it just devotes so much of your time. So that's why you need the teams of other people to do other things. Anyway, that's
you got to bring in the people that you can trust to help you grow it. I mean,
so.
This has been phenomenal. I haven't even touched on half the questions that I wanted to talk to you about.
No, we haven't, have we?
In the interest of time, I feel like this is a perfect place, you know, if people did want to pick your brains more, because clearly you're very passionate about it and you've got a lot of history. Like, how do people get in touch with you, Andrew? How do people follow along with Roleys and what they're doing?
LinkedIn, probably your best bet. Roadie's on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. Feel free to send a message or do whatever. I mean, Roadies is, I encourage anyone to have a look at it, even if you don't care about, you know, gold award winning, lower calorie, B vitamin infused, well, B vitamin brewed beer. It's really interesting to see what they're doing as a different angle to regular beer. And for me, yeah, I mean, I'm a non-executive director for Roleys, so it's been really nice to kind of just advise them from not being on the day-to-day, and something that I'm doing with a few other breweries, you know, and a few other projects. So yeah, still have time and opportunity to talk to people about anything they're doing. But it's, yeah, I guess the last thing I'll say is that it's not 2019 anymore, and it's not 2010 anymore. It's 2025. The world is what worked before is not working. Is not necessarily going to work now. Some of it will, and I think some core principles can absolutely be traced through it. but you know, it's a tough world out there. I think with the rising prices, you've got to start thinking laterally about what you can do that isn't going to cost a lot of money. And you know, brand loyalty is not about money. It's about real understanding how to take that integrity and put it out there. And it's not, yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever met a brewery that hasn't got some potential to kind of do a bit more than they are, and they don't necessarily see it. But then again, it comes down to time and money. And yeah, it's never been a better time to drink beer. There's never been better beer out there. But you know, there's always room for improvement, right?
100%, man. And on that bombshell, we will wrap it up, good sir. Andrew, thank you so much for your time today, buddy. I've really enjoyed it. And everyone who's listened in, thank you so much. And again, as always, this is Tim speaking from the past to listeners in the future. If you're listening now, if you're in the tap room, if you're in the van, I love you. Thank you so much for doing this, people. This rocks. It's been going for over a year now. It's mad. But anyway, stay tuned. I've got loads of other guests lined up for the rest of the year, and I'll see you on the other side, people. Rock on.